Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. I saw this article over here on MTG Rocks. They've got this MTG Finance section on their website, and they post some weird articles sometimes, and this is no different. Um, so apparently the writer went out to our MTG Finance on Reddit, and he just took some random threads, and then he contacted the people who were talking about bets that they had made in the market. And all of these kind of have some interesting characteristics. So generally when you're going to invest in something, there's kind of a process you should go through. You should identify the asset that you think you want to invest in. Um, you need to articulate a catalyst for why you think the value of that asset will increase while you're holding it. Then you need to at least make an attempt at stating an expectation for what you think the price will do. Like, how high will it go? Will this be a 8% compound annual growth rate for the rest of my life? Will it be a 40% increase in the next 6 months because the market is so vastly underpricing it? So you try to have an expectation, and that's a difficult step, but you'll get better over time and you'll become more reasonable over time. And then you need to have an exit strategy for what you're going to do to finally capture that increase in value. And you need to identify the risks. So you need to be able to say, what could go wrong with what I'm doing here? And I think these three guys that this writer talked to write this article, they've each of them has done part of that process to varying degrees. And so I think it's just kind of illustrative of some of the things that you can forget to take into account, and how we might deceive ourselves on certain investments and think things are going to be too rosy. And so this first guy, he's got this card called Sanctum of All, which is, it's just an enchantment, and his catalyst is, I think WotC will, or I hope WotC prints another cycle of Shrine cards, and this one synergizes well with it. And that's his entire catalyst, is that he hopes that if WotC prints more Shrine cards in Kamigawa, this one will synergize well, and then players playing Commander will pick it up, and, Shrine decks aren't very good, so it'll be the casual demand that'll have to lift the price of this card. So, it's quite a stretch to say, I hope this will happen, and if it does, then maybe casual players will hopefully buy enough of this card to lift the price up. Okay? So, it's a very weak catalyst that requires a lot of things to fall into place exactly. And then he says he has 217 non-foil copies of this card. He's not looking to buy anymore. And, his basis price is 67 cents each, and he expects them to reach $6. Now, I do applaud him for saying, I expect $6. And that's good because it says that he's actually thought about this. Now, the question is, how much has he thought about it? Does he have a good model of past performance of other investments that he might compare this to? Does he have some actuals when he's making this estimate? I don't know. And I will say this is really good. He says, I'll start selling out of my position at $3. And that's a really good thing to see, that, he doesn't want to try to wait to time the market top. That shows a lot of maturity in investing, that he is not delusional in thinking that he can identify the market top and that somehow he'll be able to unload his whole 217 card position right at the top. So that's really good. And, he kind of has part of an extra strategy here in identifying the sale prices he'd like to see. But the problem is, I don't know that he's really thought about, if the card gets to $3 and he sells a copy, he's going to pay about 30 or 40 cents of market fees to have sold that. And then he's going to have to pay about 75 cents to ship it. And that assumes he just drops it in an envelope in a top loader. So he's paying postage, plus he's paying for the cost of a top loader. And so, somewhere around a little over $1 is what he'll pay to actually consummate the sale of a card, one of these cards at $3 sale price. and then he has his basis cost of 67 cents, and so he might make $1.50 profit. And you have to start asking yourself, is it worth $1.50 for me to have accumulated these cards in the first place, tied up capital, listed the cards on eBay or TCG Player or whatever marketplace he uses, and then actually go and package them up, drive them to my post office, or drop them in my mailbox at the curb, and deal with fraud? Because again, if you're selling at this kind of level, you probably don't have tracking. If you're only paying 75 cents to ship the card, you probably don't have tracking. And so some percentage of buyers are just going to be scumbags who say, oh, I never got the card. And then they get refunded by the marketplace. And so it's a lot of risk and a lot of effort in order to make $1.50. And even at the $6 price point, his shipping is the same, his basis is the same, but his market fees go up. And he might make ballpark, I've kind of calculated that out, to about $3.80 profit each. So if he sells every one of these cards for $6, he'll make about $800 profit total for all the effort of having accumulated and then moving 200 cards. And this is kind of a fallacy that some investors will fall into, and you typically see it, and I don't mean to put any of these people down, but you typically see it with younger and newer investors. They will see an asset, say a penny stock or some crap coin in the cryptocurrency world or some super cheap magic card, and they will think, oh, how awesome, I can buy 300 of those. I have $50 to invest in penny stocks and I can buy 5,000 shares. And that quantity number excites them. It makes them feel like they're getting a lot. Where if they were to go invest in a higher quality asset, like a share of the S&P 500 index ETF or Bitcoin or something like that, they might be buying a partial share, or they might be buying a 1,000th of a Bitcoin or a 10,000th of a Bitcoin. And that just doesn't feel as fun as saying, I've got 500 copies of this card. And, if he's invested about $145 total, then, he could have bought just something stupid that I like, 5 copies of Curse Scroll. And so then when he went to sell them one day, he could actually afford to pay for tracking, because the value of the card and the amount that one card appreciated would more than cover the cost of tracking the shipment and lowering the chance that he gets scammed as the seller. And, so think about that way of buying higher value assets instead of buying a ton of low value assets, because you're going to get eaten alive on the shipping and the fraud with a bunch of low value assets. So then the second one, this guy bought a bunch of copies of Robber of the Rich, and he bought only extended art foil copies, which is interesting. Apparently this was a mythic from Throne of Eldraine. And he took 123 copies. He says he's in for about $22 each. So he's got $2,700 invested. And he doesn't really articulate an expectation of where he thinks it's going to go. In fact, he says, I don't know where the value of Robber will go. He just says that he thinks people overestimate the total number of copies of extended art foils from Throne of Eldraine that are in existence. He says he doubts it's more than 1,000 copies of each. That's interesting. I would be interested if he had a model for that. How many boxes does he think were printed? How many mythics in a box? How many mythics in the set, so that Robber of the Rich is some percentage of those total mythics? And then how many of the copies of Robber of the Rich were extended art and how many of them were foil? He might have a really good model for that. I think most of those pieces of data are known, and he could just take the product of all of them and figure out how many he thought were in existence. It's a question of, did he really or not? But he, in this process of identifying investments, he skipped the step of having an expectation. He doesn't really know, based on past experience, I think this will go to $50 a card. And he doesn't articulate an exit strategy. He even says, I'm not sure I have a plan anymore. I've grown attached to the collection, which is something you really need to avoid when you're just trying to selfishly invest in these things. And something I'll point out is all the copies he bought at $22 each for his cost basis, he spent about $2,700 on this. Now, let's assume that he's just doing this as a hobby. He's not registered as a business. So he's paying sales tax when he buys something that he intends for resale, which I don't think any of you should do. You should all be registering as a business so you don't pay that extra 6 or 8% basis cost. But let's say he's just doing that. And so his alternative was he could have gone out to the open market and bought 11 boxes of Modern Horizons 2 set boosters at about $230 a box with 7% tax and free shipping. So he could have had those 11 boxes. Now, in the next, say, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, we have a lot of certainty that set booster boxes of Modern Horizons 2 are going to go up. They're probably going to go up quite a bit. Now, this bet on Robber of the Rich that he made, it may go up. And it'll probably go up. And it may go up a bit. And maybe it'll go up a ton, but maybe it'll also just dally around, especially full art foil versions, might just dally around and not really move much at all. And so he has this highly variable bet that may pay off really well, but it may just do nothing. And he may have this $2,700 tied up in these cards for a long time, maybe forever, maybe until he capitulates and he sells at a loss. And if he invested in Modern Horizons 2 set booster boxes instead, he would be, I don't want to say guaranteed, but he would be much more sure of a pretty good return instead of betting on this highly variable return that may work out, but may just turn out to be nothing. And so that's kind of the danger of this kind of bet. Now, the third guy, Urza Charm, this one's really weird. He has a really weak catalyst, which is basically the card was bonkers. He just thought it was a really powerful card. The market doesn't seem to agree because looking this morning, basically the market still values this card at what he paid for it, which is about 20 cents for a non-foil and 80 cents for a foil version. Now he bought 24 copies of each of these. So he's only into this investment for $23.50. And the thing that I feel like this guy is not taking into account, one, he doesn't have an expectation. So he doesn't state what he thinks the price could get to. He just says, as soon as the market is back above $1, I'm going to start selling. And that's really his expectation as far as it goes and his exit strategy. But unfortunately, to break even, again, with market fees and shipping costs, the foil version has to go to about $1.75. Then he can pay the shipping costs, he can pay the market fees, and he can break even on 80-cent basis costs for the foil version. For the non-foil version, it's got to go to $1.10 for him to break even. And that's not making any money. That's spending all of his time and tying up this capital to break even. And so again, you have to think, am I going to buy a bunch of copies of a super cheap card and then get eaten alive on shipping costs and probably fraud too when I go to sell them? Or would I just be better off spending that $24 on one near mint copy of a reserve list card and holding that for a while and then selling it? And you'd always be better on that one card because, again, you can pay to have that shipped with tracking to reduce the chance of fraud, and it will not eat up nearly so much of your money. So, to give an example of this kind of process of, identifying an asset, articulating the catalyst, stating the expectation, having an exit strategy, and identifying your risks, I'll point to something I bought at the end of November. It was a case of Commander 2020 decks, the ones that were from Ikoria and all had the Godzilla theme. So that was the asset I identified. The catalyst I thought was going to be the large inverted EV on that product because at the time, the value of the singles was vastly greater than the cost of the case. And again, it's hard to capture that value of the singles because you're dealing in singles. You have a bunch of individual shipping costs and everything else. But the gap, the amount of inverted EV between the case and all the singles was very large. And so my expectation was if I buy this and I hold it for a little while, some of that inefficiency in the market that's manifesting as inverted EV will snap back because people will realize, oh, if let's say you are used to doing cracking boxes and selling singles, you might have seen this case and thought, oh, I can just pick those up for 130 and I can crack out just the best singles and sell them and make all my money back, plus have this huge stack of other cards to sell in the future. And so my expectation was some people will do that and they will pull cases of Commander 2020 out of circulation permanently, which will cause the remaining cases, including the ones I buy, to go up in value. That was my expectation. And my exit strategy was eventually I'll sell the case because I have no desire to crack boxes and sell singles. The risks were that some of the singles might drop in price because of reprinting in future sets as we just march along. But I figure that risk is the risk of individual reprints is high, but the risk to the overall estimated value of all the cards in that Commander 2020 case is low because there's a lot of cards in there. And so what has happened with that investment since I bought it at the end of November? I bought the case for $132, and this morning the price is $176. So it's gone up 33% in just over a month. And so you know at this point I could sell it, and after market fees and shipping, I could make a little bit of money. Now they would eat up a lot of that value, but if I hold it longer, it'll go up more. The singles will go up more. More of the cases will be pulled out of existence. And so you can see that if you have a more developed, every step of the way of this investment process, your answers are more developed and you have more experience with this, you'll start to find better investments that will return better. Certainly 33% on paper return on investment in 1 month is pretty good. So, let me know what you think. And again, I don't mean to rip on any of these guys who are making these investments on Reddit. I just think that, we all always have more to learn about investing and about helping each other make better investments, to understand what is the scientific process of what we're doing here, and to help us think more clearly about how to make more money off of this. So, hey, if you like this kind of thing, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Thanks a lot.